not since I've known you.
Car crashes are the #1 killer of young Americans. Most of the 47,000 people killed every year in car accidents are between the ages of 16 and 34. Half of these deaths are caused by drug and alcohol abuse. When we're young, we tend to think accidents only happen to others. It's not true. All too easily, we can be the cause and we can be the victims. The movie you're about to see has no actors. The victims and their families who appear want to spare you from the tragedy they've suffered and its aftermath. This is Carly Simon.
Sporting a T-shirt that said diving, 25-year-old Bruce David Kimball of Ann Arbor, Michigan, walked out of the Hillsborough County Jail on bond. He's charged with 2 counts of vehicular manslaughter. He allegedly rammed his Mazda sports car into a large crowd of young people gathered on Cuthbert Road in Valrico.
He hits another body. Keeps going.
2 people in the crowd were killed on impact, 16-year-old Kevin Gossick and 19-year-old Bobby Bedell. 2 others received critical injuries, 16-year-old Raymond Kirker and April Bruffy. Kimball reportedly told police he had several drinks before the crash. Kimball wasn't hurt, but one of 2 passengers in his car received minor injuries. The 25-year-old Olympic diver and winner of a silver medal in 1984 was in Tampa to practice for Olympic competition in Seoul. Detectives have questioned Kimball about the accident, but they're not saying much about that conversation. They're now waiting for the results of a blood alcohol test. The test results and their report will be turned over to the state attorney, and more charges are likely to be filed. In Hillsborough County, I'm Bill Alexander, Action News.
The spot was a pretty normal place. It was away from Brandon, the main part of the town, and it was pretty secluded, pretty safe. So we found it one night. And it started out the kids would hang out there, either on the weekends and during the summer, every night. I'd gone out to the spot. I took 2 of my friends out there, Jason Hamilton and Kevin Gossick. We'd gone out there and met a couple friends and had been sitting there for maybe an hour and doing pretty normal stuff, you know, pretty much what every other teenager does, you know, meeting girls and talking to friends.
I turned to give RJ a hug, just say, "How you doing?" Looked over his shoulder, saw headlights, and was hit.
You really couldn't see anything because it was dark, but when the cars would go by, you could see pretty much the whole scene. Really grim scene. A lot of carnage. There were body parts laying around all over the place. But Robbie Bedell was to my right and April's to my left. I couldn't really see April at all because my eye had been swollen shut. I hit my head on the ground, I guess, when I was hit by the car, but Robbie was pretty cut up. He was just, you could tell he was dead right away. And my friend Kevin had been hit at the same time, and he was up the street. The car must have dragged him up the street. We couldn't tell what happened. But I really didn't know then exactly what happened. We had just been standing around, and all of a sudden we were hit.
The first thing I saw, of course, was very dark, and there's no street lights down there because it's a dead end. And there were bodies in the road, and there were pieces of bodies in the road. There was blood going down the gutters, streaming down the gutters, and cars everywhere, and smashed.
So I looked to my side, and I saw RJ laying there, and I thought he was dead. I didn't know, and I thought, oh my God. And I saw his leg was off. Well, that just put me in a frenzy because I figured his leg's off, and I'm hurting this way. my leg's got to be off, and my life is over. My leg is off.
April was just screaming, and I couldn't get her to stop, but I knew she was alive, so I thought, well, I'll just go next. So I crawled until I hit another body, and it was the Kirker boy.
I just come on duty that night when I was dispatched to an accident down here at the dead end of Culbreth, which the teenagers commonly refer to as the Spot. They come down here and they gather and socialize and drink and get together. It's a very dark area. There's no street lights. When I arrived, I could see with my headlights a body in the roadway. I stopped my car, called for EMS, and I could see a teenage girl and a teenage boy laying on the side of the road, bleeding very badly from their legs. Both of them had their legs partially severed.
Well, we were in a state of panic because we didn't know what was happening or where RJ was. One child had been brought in, and only one. And at the time, I didn't know it, but that was April Bruffy. We finally got some information saying that RJ had been helicoptered to Tampa General. And so my neighbor drove me to Tampa General. In the meantime, the Gossiks were right behind us. They were looking for their son, too. Seeing those people standing at the window, trying to get information of where their son was, and knowing that their son wasn't alive was one of the hardest things. And they were just going from hospital to hospital. They just back and forth, trying to get some information, trying to find their son. And meanwhile, a nurse and one of the doctors took me back and told me that RJ was upstairs. They were about ready to take him into surgery, that his leg had been 3/4 severed. They did not know whether they could save his leg or not.
A crowd of 150 paid their last respects at the Hillsborough Memorial Cemetery this morning for Kevin Gossick. A 16-year-old friend say had his life snuffed out before it even got started.
Kevin's someone that could really make you laugh.
An unfortunate and traumatic event is the way everyone describes this bizarre incident. And it's unfortunate this entire scene will be played out again tomorrow when another victim, Robbie Bedell, is laid to rest too.
I didn't think it was any big deal. I didn't think it had affected me as badly as it had. I just kind of thought I could handle it until I came home, which is about a week later. I went to the funeral, Kevin Gossick's funeral, before I went to see my brother. And it hit really hard, all of us. I saw my family for the first time in a month. And when you were so far away from them, it just really was hard to deal with. I just cried my eyes out at the funeral, and I saw all my friends, and seeing Kevin's casket and having to deal with it was really difficult. And then I went to see RJ in the hospital, and it had to be the hardest thing I have ever had to do in my entire life. You don't think that you're as close to your brother as you really are until you see him in a lot of pain.
I can recall vividly the morning that my wife and I heard about Robbie's death. We had just gone on a vacation to the beach about an hour from home here, and it was the first vacation that we had gone on in many, many years, and we had really been excited about going. Robbie had stayed home, and basically because of his job, and he was working at the time for a summer job, and the crash occurred on a late Monday night, and August 1st, 1988, and we didn't find out about it till about 7 o'clock the next morning. Very close friends of ours drove over to the beach and woke us and told my wife about the crash. And needless to say, we were totally devastated. You go through things that you just can't describe. Where Robbie and the thoughts of Robbie and the memories flash back immediately, and then a total numbness of just not knowing what you're doing or what you're thinking or what you're saying.
That Tuesday morning, I guess it would be, one of Robbie's friends called me and told me that there was an accident, and that I had to come quick, and that Robbie was hurt, and I didn't quite understand what was going on, but I ended up at the hospital, and no one knew where Robbie was. And then the police detective pulled me over and told me that Robbie had been killed. And the only thing I could think is, how could this happen? How could this? We were good kids. We had a lot in our life, and I couldn't understand how he could be here one second and gone the next.
Bruce Kimball's problems continued to mount since his arrest in early August. 2 teens died, 4 others injured when Kimball's car plowed into a popular hangout in Valrico. Kimball faced vehicular manslaughter, but apparent evidence that the Olympic diver was drunk prompted new charges.
Our policy is to file charges under the most serious offense that we believe the evidence warrants, and that's why we selected the DUI manslaughter charges.
Specifically, Kimball is charged with 2 counts of second-degree felony DUI manslaughter for the deaths of Robbie Bedell and Kevin Gossick, 3 counts of third-degree felony DUI with personal injury for those hurt in the wreck.
I've dealt with a tremendous amount of adversity in my life. I've experienced enough to know that a person doesn't give up. Not a person here has any understanding of the feelings of grief and remorse that I've experienced in the last 2 weeks. I would like to express my deepest sympathies for the families and friends of the victims of this tragedy.
The state attorney is not confirming Kimball's blood alcohol content level when he crashed into the teens on this spot, but law enforcement officials confirmed with Action News a level of .20, twice the legal limit.
If an individual is killed by the criminal actions of another person, doesn't matter whether that death is called a manslaughter because of a gunshot or whether it's a manslaughter by driving while under the influence of alcohol. It is still a criminal homicide, it is a felony, and it will be prosecuted as such. More and more people, without thinking about it at all, are getting behind the wheels of cars and causing accidents, causing deaths, causing serious bodily injuries of one sort or another. It is a problem which is getting worse. Whether it's going to get worse before it gets better or not, I don't know. But I do know that because of the increasing problem and because of the changing public perception to this problem, that in this day and age, these offenses, these so-called accidents are going to be and are being regarded as the very, very serious felonies which they are.
16-year-old R.J. Kirker feels lucky to be alive. The teenager's left leg was nearly severed in the accident. His mother says she always fussed at her son for not having his tennis shoes tied. But in this case, it may have saved his life.
It probably would not have a leg, or it would have taken it completely off.
Kirker's left tennis shoe was found in the wheel well of Kimball's car.
I've been in the hospital for a month. I went in there originally, and the first 10 days was fine. Everything, the first 2 operations I had pins in my leg, 4 pins going all the way down. They'd done a flap operation and bone grafts, among other things, to help it heal up and to keep from infection. And I'd gotten out. I had another pin in my foot to keep it from dropping because I don't have any muscle control on my bottom foot for bringing it up. They thought maybe it wouldn't heal right. So they put one in there, and when they took it out, it swollen up, and I had to go in for another 17 days. From there on, it's been trying to get back to what I had before. It's really hard to sit here, watch other people run or play sports, and knowing that I did it before, I'm not able to now. Before I played soccer and football and I did all kinds of active sports, swimming, golf, anything that interests me.
RJ has been very brave, through this whole thing. He's handled it very, very well. I wish that people would think before they get behind the wheel of a car after drinking. When we hit someone, we injure them, kill them, it's not just the person that you hit who suffers, it's the family, it's the person who's done the damage. He suffers, his family suffers, everyone is hurt.
Kimball arrived at the Hillsborough County Court this morning, and there were hordes of photographers and members of the press to greet him. Before he arrived, Circuit Judge Harry Lee Coe, accompanied by court bailiffs and Kimball's attorneys, engaged in some preliminary questioning of jurors. All along, publicity surrounding the trial has been an issue. In court, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and friends and family of the victims all sat patiently, waiting for what they call long-awaited justice in a case that's the classic example, they say, of the ills of drunk driving.
When we were initially approached to represent Bruce Kimball, the last thing in Bruce's mind or any of the witnesses that were in the car with him that night was that they were under the influence of alcoholic beverages. We initially thought that there was going to be a very valid defense in that case until we were confronted with the blood alcohol, which was a 2.0, twice the legal blood alcohol. It was real disappointing when we realized that that was going to be the blood alcohol that would be introduced into evidence.
Just after opening arguments, the jury was escorted out of the courtroom. Kimball met with his lawyers for about 25 minutes. He came back with tears in his eyes, talked to his parents, and lawyers told the judge he would plead guilty to DUI manslaughter and DUI causing serious bodily injury. Today, one witness took the stand, the deputy first on the scene of the accident.
The first thing that I saw was a body laying in the road. It was in several pieces.
And she says there was a foot with two more bodies nearby. As the prosecutor prepared to show the jury the picture of a mutilated body, the proceeding came to a halt.
They pled guilty to the 2 counts of DUI manslaughter and 3 counts of DUI with causing serious bodily injury. The state dropped the 2 counts of manslaughter by culpable negligence because, not part of a plea agreement of any sort, but simply because the law in Florida is very clear that you can only be actually convicted and sentenced on 1 count of homicide per 1 death.
The unpleasant details of the bloody ordeal were just too much for Bruce Kimball.
We're satisfied that Mr. Kimball has acknowledged his guilt and made the public statement. And I'm satisfied with that.
After the surprise move in court, Dick Kimball, the Olympic diving coach, Bruce Kimball's father, the man who says he will always stick by his son, made an emotional statement on the courthouse steps.
I'm very proud of him because he did not want to put the families of the kids through a horrible court trial or our family.
I'm glad it's over. We've been through a lot, and we just want to try to work on our lives now.
We've just completed the Bruce Kimball case, where unfortunately a fine young man, an Olympic diver, killed 2 innocent victims and injured 4. The sentence Mr. Kimball received was 17 years in the Florida State Prison. Mr. Kimball had never been accused or convicted of any offense before in his entire life. So you can understand the serious nature of the problem. Most of the people who come before me charged with these types of offenses are not quote-unquote criminals, basically have no prior record. So it's not a question of rehabilitation, it's a question of punishment and deterrence. Obviously, 17 years is a heavy punishment. Whether or not 17 years will be a deterrent to others not to do drive while drinking or to drive while under the influence of drugs remains to be seen. While there may be some rehabilitation in this sentence, it will only be, as Louis Wainwright, who headed the Florida prison system for so many years, stated, that once a person has received a sentence and hears that cell door close behind them, basically they're about as rehabilitated as they're ever going to be.
I don't feel hatred or vengeful towards Bruce Kimball at all now. No one in my family feels that way. We all feel that it's over, it's done with, and that if he can get his life back together someday and help other people, that would be fantastic. That would be good.
You just have all these different feelings. You ruined your life, and you ruined others' lives, your family's lives, so many people's lives he has affected. You couldn't even imagine how many people's lives he's affected and changed and destroyed. You just don't know what to think about it.
When you lose one of your children, you lose your future, and the anger and frustration I get, anger is probably the proper word, that my wife and I were feeling when we came to realization that all this had occurred because somebody chose to drink and drink irresponsibly and then drive an automobile and go out and kill our son just as if they had taken a gun and shot him.
I'm Fred Manoucherian, president of the Manoucherian Foundation. Every year, 47,000 people die in automobile accidents. Think about it. As many Americans die each year on our highways as in the 10-year Vietnam War. The aftermath shows some of the injustice, injury, and grief caused by 2 such highway deaths. Over 23,000 of the fatalities each year are caused by drug abuse. Alcohol is a drug, and its abuse is the greatest single cause of this carnage. The Manoucherian Foundation distributes this booklet, Flesh, Metal, and Glass. It deals with all aspects of safety on our highways, and it has a chart showing what it takes to reach illegal and dangerous blood alcohol levels. For a free copy, please write to the Manoucherian Foundation at 475 Park Avenue South, New York, New York, 10016. And remember, alcohol abuse is a grave mistake.